You are standing in a gap between a mountain and the sea. It is barely wide enough for a wagon. Behind you, 300 men are sharpening spears they already know will break. Ahead of you, a dust cloud stretches to the horizon, and inside that cloud is the largest army the world has ever assembled. You are not going to win. Everyone in this gap already knows that, and yet you are about to watch why they stayed anyway. This is the story of Thermopylae, but the real story is stranger than the movies ever told you. The year is 480 BC. The Persian Empire, ruled by King Xerxes, is the largest political entity humanity has ever built. Its army numbers in the hundreds of thousands, drawn from dozens of nations, speaking dozens of languages. Its navy blackens the sea. Xerxes has bridged the Hellespont with boats lashed together, because he considers the strait beneath him too, and when a storm destroyed his first bridge, ancient sources say he had the sea itself whipped 300 times. This is not a man used to being told no. Greece, by contrast, is not even a country. It is a scatter of fiercely independent city-states that usually hate each other more than they hate outsiders. Athens and Sparta, the two most powerful, have gone to war against each other before and will again. But in 480 BC, for one brief moment, they choose to stand together. Not because they trust each other, because the alternative is disappearing. The Greek strategy is built entirely on geography. And this is where the story stops being about bravery and starts being about physics. Thermopylae means hot gates, named for nearby sulfur springs. At the time, the pass was a narrow corridor between steep mountains and the Malian Gulf, in places barely 15 meters wide. A modern historian would call this a choke point. To the Greeks, it was the only place on the mainland where numbers stopped mattering. Xerxes could bring 100,000 men, but only a few hundred could fight at once. The vast Persian advantage in raw numbers becomes, in this exact geography, almost irrelevant. King Leonidas of Sparta leads the defense. He brings his personal royal guard, 300 Spartan hoplites, each one a full citizen soldier trained from age 7 in a brutal state education system called the agoge. But here's what most retellings leave out. Leonidas did not fight alone with 300 men. He commanded a coalition force of somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 Greeks, including troops from Thespiae, Thebes, and other city-states. The 300 were the elite corps. They were not the entire defense. Why does the number 300 stick and not 7,000? Because Spartan law required every king to take exactly 300 men from his personal guard, and because Herodotus, the Greek historian writing decades later, structured his account around Spartan heroism specifically. History does not just record what happened. It records what someone chose to emphasize, and that choice echoes for 2,500 years. For 2 days, the strategy works. Wave after wave of Persian infantry, including Xerxes' famed Immortals, a unit of 10,000 elite soldiers, break against the narrow pass. The Greek hoplites fight in a tight phalanx formation, overlapping shields, spears bristling forward, a wall of bronze that turns a battlefield into a meat grinder for anyone charging into it. Herodotus writes that the Spartans employed feigned retreats, drawing Persian soldiers forward before turning and cutting them down. This was not blind heroism. It was rehearsed, disciplined violence. But a pass has more than one entrance, and this is the part of the story that turns triumph into tragedy. A local Greek man named Ephialtes approaches the Persian camp with information. There is a mountain track, the Anapeia path, that loops behind the Greek position. For a price, he offers to guide Persian soldiers around the choke point entirely. Geography, the very thing that had made 300 men equal to 100,000, has a back door, and someone just sold the key. When Leonidas learns the Persians are circling behind him, he makes a decision that has been argued over for millennia. He dismisses most of the Greek coalition, sending thousands of men home to fight another day. He keeps his 300 Spartans, along with several hundred Thespians and Thebans, and stays. Modern historians debate his exact reasoning. Spartan law forbade retreat. A religious prophecy reportedly warned that either Sparta or a Spartan king must fall. And there is a colder, more tactical read too. A rearguard, however small, could still slow the Persian advance long enough for the rest of Greece to prepare. What happened next was not a battle. It was closer to an execution, conducted with tremendous discipline on one side. Surrounded on both fronts, the remaining Greeks fought with spears until their spears broke, then with swords, then, according to Herodotus, with hands and teeth after the swords were lost too. Leonidas died in the fighting. His body became the center of a vicious struggle, with Greeks and Persians fighting over the corpse itself, 4 times pushing the Persians back before finally being overwhelmed. It is the kind of detail that sounds invented. It is also exactly the kind of detail ancient combat archaeology has repeatedly confirmed as plausible. Bodies at the center of a formation often became rallying points, both symbolic and tactical. Every remaining Greek at Thermopylae was killed. By any conventional measure, this is a defeat. The pass fell. Xerxes marched south. Athens itself was evacuated and burned. If you measured Thermopylae only by its immediate military outcome, it would be a footnote. A small delaying action in a war Persia was still, for the moment, winning. But something else happened in that narrow gap, and it had nothing to do with tactics. Word of the stand spread through the Greek city-states faster than the Persian army itself. Historians studying the psychology of collective resistance have long pointed to Thermopylae as an early, clear case of what modern researchers call a costly signal. An act so extreme, so disproportionately sacrificial, that it cannot be faked, and therefore cannot be ignored. 300 men and their allies did not just fight. They demonstrated in the clearest possible terms that resistance was not suicidal delusion. It was a viable choice, and some people were willing to make it. A month later, the Greek navy met the Persian fleet at Salamis and destroyed it. The following year, the remaining Persian land forces were defeated at Plataea. Xerxes went home. The invasion that had seemed unstoppable simply stopped. Historians still debate exactly how much Thermopylae contributed to that outcome versus how much it was simply the story Greece told itself afterward to explain a victory that felt, in hindsight, improbable. The historian Paul Cartle has argued that the delay bought at Thermopylae gave the Greek fleet crucial extra time to prepare its position at Salamis, a battle that arguably mattered more strategically than Thermopylae ever did. But strategy is not the only currency history trades in. Meaning matters too, and meaning does not always follow the math. Here is the part that should feel uncomfortable. You already know this pattern because you have lived a version of it. You have watched a team keep playing a game it statistically cannot win because giving up felt worse than losing. You have watched someone stay in a losing argument, a failing project, a doomed effort, not because the numbers favored them, but because the act of staying said something the outcome couldn't. Psychologists who study group behavior under existential threat have found again and again that a visible, costly commitment from even a small number of people can shift the behavior of everyone watching. Not because it changes the odds, because it changes what people believe is possible. The 300 did not win the pass. They were never going to win the pass. What they changed was what an entire civilization believed about itself at the exact moment it needed to believe something. You are standing in a gap between a mountain and the sea. Somewhere behind you, an army is coming that you cannot stop. The strange truth of Thermopylae is not that 300 men held a narrow gate. It's that, 2,500 years later, you are still the one deciding what that gate meant.